What you're about to hear could be disturbing.
When Trump was running last year and sounding like the lunatic that he is, Republicans fell in behind his rhetoric about rounding up 12 million people because they were quietly thinking, you can't win. Oops.
There are going to be substantial deportations. They're called criminals. I mean, 2 million people would be a lot of people to deport. And if at the same time you gain control of the border, and if you passed a guest worker program, you'd be a long way towards then 3 or 4 or 5 years from now dealing with the rest of the folks who are here without legal permission.
That was Newt Gingrich in 2016, talking about how difficult it would be to deport 2 million people, much less the 12 million Trump said he'll remove. Trump's campaign in 2016 didn't promise mass deportation, mostly because he didn't fully understand the depth of America's racism. But that all changed in 2024. Today, Tiny Fingers fully gets how angry and uneducated his base truly is.
How much do you think undocumented immigrants pay into the tax system every year?
Zero?
Nothing.
Oh, probably nothing. Undocumented, I would guess zero. Why would they pay anything?
My guess is nothing.
Since they're undocumented, $0.
$100? $100. 2022, they paid $96 billion into Social Security and Medicare, just undocumented.
I really don't know what to say about it.
2022, they paid $96 billion into the Social Security Medicare system.
It seems ludicrous that there would be that kind of money coming in.
You are 100% right. Given everything we've heard, it sounds absurd. It sounds insane, just like an alternate reality, right? It runs counter to the entire narrative that we've been getting the past several years. The undocumented immigrants, they paid into the system. They pay it into the system.
Okay.
So through ITN number.
Is undocumented immigrants?
Undocumented immigrants. They pay Medicare, they pay Social Security. They don't get Social Security.
Right, but they pay into it.
They pay into
I
it.
wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
So now Republicans like Gingrich are saying it out loud. This isn't going to work. Gingrich told The Guardian, I'd be very surprised if you see any significant effort to change the game for people who are here legally. I just think there's a very small fraction of the party that's rabid about this. Gingrich said legally because this mope, Tom Homan, who Trump wants to be the border czar, is saying he is in effect ready to ignore the 14th Amendment, which says if you're born here, you're a citizen.
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
Now let that sink in. Homan is saying U.S. citizens, children, can be deported for the crimes of their parents or grandparents. But Gingrich thinks, as most people do, that this is insane. It's nonsense to say somebody who came here when they were only 2, only speaks English, graduated as a high school valedictorian, and is currently a nurse or a doctor should be deported. We're going to deport them and they don't speak the language of whatever country their parents came from and they've earned the right to be Americans? But here's the question. Does MAGA care what Gingrich says?
His borders will be strong, sealed, and secure. Very easily. Get ready, Tom Homan.
And the man who will be largely responsible for that policy is his pick to be border czar, Tom Homan.
Every president I've worked for said they're going to secure the border. President Trump actually did it.
Taking on Democratic lawmakers critical of Trump's immigration policies.
So if you want to know why this issue exists, you need to look in the mirror. You have failed American people for not securing the border and closing loopholes.
Mr. Homan.
And facing criticism for defending Trump's zero-tolerance policy, which led to thousands of families being separated at the border.
I'm sick and tired of hearing about the family separation. And I'm still being sued over that, so come get me. I don't give a
in American history to come into office and unsecure a border. Who the hell does that?
Since being named as Trump's border czar, a role that doesn't require Senate confirmation, Homan has made frequent appearances on conservative media outlets outlining the details of the president-elect's immigration plans, including mass deportations.
If you're in the country legally, you shouldn't feel comfortable, absolutely. If they cross that line and knowingly harbor and conceal illegal alien, well, I'm going to seek prosecution.
Okay, first of all, that guy sounds like he's been drinking since breakfast. But the next question I have is for this rat here. 1 million people a year? That's over 3,000 people a day. How does that work? What about their hearings and their attorneys, court dates and appeals, internment camps and airstrips with planes waiting?
America is for Americans and Americans only.
Okay, so it's going to cost about $88 billion per million deported. So we're looking at about $1 trillion just to remove them. All right, now that's up. But what about the impact to the economy? Well, that's catastrophic. Added to the tariffs, it's bad, really bad.
By the way, what happens does happen when you put tariffs on goods and you stop immigration and force migrants to leave? Isn't that going to be inflationary?
Of course.
course.
Is it a one-time, though, and then you
smooth
sort of
quality?
even out?
I don't know. I mean, when you see tariffs like that, obviously you think about 1929.
But then it gets really interesting. How will America respond? If 75 million people voted for Trump, what will the other 275 million people think when their friends or gardeners or nannies are rounded up and put into camps? Gingrich asked the same question. Lincoln once said that with popular sentiment, anything is possible. Without popular sentiment, nothing is possible. Well, you get very many human stories about mothers or babies or children being deported, then support for the deportation program will collapse. Trump began with this.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and we're building a wall on the border of New Mexico, and we're building a wall in Colorado. We're building a beautiful wall. A big one that really works, that you can't get over, you can't get under.
But the First Lady only built 50 miles in 4 years, and other efforts to raise funds were disrupted by people like Steve Bannon, who was convicted of stealing money from a MAGA fund from voters to complete the wall. Trump pardoned him, and then he had dinner at Mar-a-Lago with this guy.
J.D. Vance also has a non-white wife, an Indian wife, and a kid named Vivek. All his kids have Indian names. So it's like, what exactly are we getting here? And that's not a dig at him just because I'm a racist or something. But it's like, who is this guy really? Do we really expect that the guy who has an Indian wife and named their kid Vivek is going to support white identity?
This isn't about national security. You know what really protected people? Sanctuary cities, where undocumented people working 7 days a week could call the cops when a bad guy was around, and the cops would arrest the bad guy and leave the undocumented people alone. Reagan understood that.
I believe in the idea of amnesty for those who have put down roots and who have lived here, even though some time back they may have entered illegally.
But then again, Reagan wasn't Trump. Trump is playing the race card like he did when he called for the execution of the Central Park Five, who, even after they were found innocent, Trump continued to put their lives in danger by calling them killers and rapists.
And this guy's personal life is a total disaster.
Trump rode in on a wave of hate and bigotry and has again ascended on the backs of America's darkest period in a century. And he won. But will wiser minds prevail? Can Trump balance a mass deportation along with a dozen other insanities on his plate?
And she wrote the most beautiful story you've ever seen. It was a love story.
While Democrats and independents have been quiet since the election, basically in shock that Americans are this evil or stupid or both, it won't last. And if Gingrich's comments reflect the Liz Cheneys and the Adam Kinzingers in the Republican zeitgeist, well, there might be hope for these people after all.
Goddamn right. Use my words against me and you'd be absolutely right.
That is crazy! They're eating the dogs. We will build the wall.
You're an idiot!
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.